Hello, it's Mrs. Gillum, and I'm here today with another lesson for you about vowel sounds. This lesson was designed for grades 1 through 3, but everyone is welcome to join in. For this lesson, you will need pencil and paper because I am going to ask you to write down the sounds I am teaching so you can practice them after the lesson. Everyone knows that the hardest sounds to master as a reader are the vowel sounds. Vowel sounds can change depending on the letters that are around them, or how many vowels are in the word, or whether the sound is supposed to be the long vowel or the short vowel. That is why I've been focusing on vowels so much lately, because I want every reader to know the different rules about vowel sounds. I brought something with me today that I wanted to introduce to you called Vowel Town. You may have seen it before in a classroom. A teacher may have taught you these sounds. And I want to use Vowel Town in some of my future lessons. And I'm using it today, so I thought I would show it to you and tell you the sounds. So Vowel Town has a story behind it, and as I move through Vowel Town, I'll tell you a little bit of the story. As you can see, the vowels live in the taxis and in the houses and in the apartments. Over here, we have Smile Hill. We call it Smile Hill because we smile when we say these sounds. Let me say the sounds for you, and you watch and see if it makes me smile. E, I, E, A, A. Down here, we call this Wide Open Valley. That's because when these sounds are said, the mouth falls open. These three sounds are all the same. Ah, ah, ah. As we move up the road to Circle Hill, we find that all of these vowels have at least one O. So we call this Circle Hill because when you make these sounds, your mouth makes a circle. Watch and see if my mouth makes a circle as I say these sounds. O, oo. These are the taxi sounds. They are called the taxi sounds because taxis move. And when you say these sounds, your mouth will move. Watch and see if my mouth moves when I make these sounds. I, you, ow, ow, oi, oi. Now what I really want to share with you today is this, the apartments. There are 5 sounds that live in the apartments, and they are important sounds that readers need to know. And so I will bring down a big version of the apartments for you to see. So I can tell you that the reason why it's called the apartments is because the letter R is at work in the apartments. The letter R is in each one of these 5 vowel pairs. It changes the sound of the original vowel. It's not really long and it's not really short. And the reason why they live in the apartment is there are some clues about the apartments to help you remember the sounds. And I'm going to teach you those today. Up here in the top apartment, we have 3 sisters sharing the apartment. They are sisters because that is a clue to their sound. This is Miss ER, Miss IR, and Miss UR. They all make the same sound at the end of the word sister. Their sound is So let's practice the sound the 3 sisters make as I point to the letters. ER says Say that with me. IR says and UR also says, say it with me, So these three vowel pairs, EI, ER, IR, and UR, all say er. Now right under them in the apartments is Mr. AR. Mr. AR is a pirate. And he says what every pirate says, Arr. So when you see AR, remember the sound of a pirate and say Arr. Practice it with me. Arr. Underneath Mr. AR is Mr. Orr. He lives right by the door. And that is a clue to help you remember his sound. And that is OR makes the sound OR, just like in the word door. So practice with me the sound OR. Good job. Now let's practice all the sounds one more time before we read some words and see how those sounds work when we're reading words. Let's start at the top with the sisters. When I point, I want you to say the sound, and then I will let you know if that's correct. Ready? I'm going to point to the three sisters. What is the sound of ER? What is the sound of IR? What is the sound of UR? Did you answer the same for each one? That the sounds are If you did, you got it right. Now I'm going to point at the middle apartment where the pirate lives. What is the sound of AR? Did you say R like a pirate? Then you got that one right. What about Mr. Orr down here, right by the door? What is his sound? Did you say or? If you did, you got that one right too. Well, let's see what happens when we try to put these sounds in some words. Here's my first word, and right in the middle, you see the ER. What does that say? Look back up at Valtown and decide what this says. Did you say It's one of the sisters. So this word is p, k, p, k. Let's slide it. Perk, perk. Better perk up. What's in the middle of this word? That's right, ER. What is the first sound? B. B. T. Let's slide it. Bert. Bert, the boy's name. Here's a new word. And what is right in the middle of that new word? IR. So what is the sound of IR? That's right, This letter, G, L. Let's slide it. Girl, girl. Good job. Another word, and here we see IR. What is the first sound? Fur, fur, like a fir tree. Here is a UR. Right in the middle, the first sound is t, hurt. Here we have another word with UR in the middle. The first sound is K. UR is one of the sisters. It says K, curl, like curl in your hair. Here is AR. Where is AR on the chart? Do you remember Mr. AR is a pirate? What is his sound? If you said R, you got that right. This word is P, R, K. We'll slide it out. Park. Park. We like to go to the park. Our next word also has AR. R in the middle, but it starts with R, farm. Our last word that I have here is the word corn. How does that work? K, or, corn, because the sound OR is for Mr. Orr by the door. Well, I have a few more here that I'm mixing up so they're not in the order that you see them on Valtown. And let's do a little quiz. Can you read this word? Sort. I think I have time for one more. Art. Well, that's all I have time for today, but please make sure you write down ERIRUR, AR, and OR so that you can practice these at home by looking around and listening for words and writing them down. It was great to be with you today. I'm Mrs. Gillum. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Kindergarten is great at Kansas City Public Schools.
I know they have really good teachers. I know this is a great school.
They teach them stuff that I thought my kids would never be able to know at the age of 5.
Since deciding to send our kiddos to a neighborhood school, we've become even more of a part of our community.
Now is the time to enroll your future kindergartner for the new school year. Visit enrollkc.org today.
I am Lincoln Middle.
At Lincoln Middle School, students discover their talents and passions, where teachers plant the seeds of lifelong learning.
I am Lincoln Middle,
where excellence is nurtured. Students develop the skills to be successful in school, career, and beyond.
Je suis Lincoln Middle.
Lincoln Middle is the public school where your child will thrive and grow. Open a world of possibilities. Apply today. Learn more at enrollkc.org/Lincoln Middle.
Hello everyone, my name is Raya Rivers and I am the lead literacy interventionist for Kansas City Public School District. Today we are going to learn about question-answer relationship strategies. These are called QAR strategies and they help us with our reading. When we answer questions that are about our reading, sometimes they come from our head, and sometimes they come from the reading. Now, don't get me misunderstood. We always have to use our heads, but I'll explain to you a little bit more about what I mean. By the end of this video, you will understand what right there questions are and how to answer them. Think and search questions are on their own. And there's some little pictures there that I Tried really hard to draw for you guys. And then author and me. So let's go back to write their questions. Write their questions. You will find those answers by using your head, of course, but you will find those right in the text. Those types of questions will be something like, who is the story about? Where did the story take place? What color is the ball in the story? Those are the types of questions that are right there questions. Now, don't get me wrong, they're important, but they're not as hard to find as the questions or the answers to the questions that are think and search. Now, as you can see, you got to think about it, then you have to search. Oftentimes, you will do this when you are summarizing, when you are comparing and contrasting. These are just some examples. What the author wants you to do is to really think about what you read. This is where you really grow your reading. And you really don't want to give up because the answers are in the text. You just got to search for them and make sure you think about what the question is asking of you. Then we start getting into what is in our heads, that schema, the things that we know that are there. The author is trying to activate that type of thinking. So, author and me. Author and me. Oh, so maybe your teacher, friend, the author, your parents are asking you to make a prediction. Because remember, this is in your head. It's not necessarily in the text, but it has to do with the reading. It has to do with the book, the article, whatever that you were reading, okay? Maybe they might ask you, what's the author's purpose of this text? Again, in the text, the author isn't probably going to say, this story is to entertain you. You're going to use the clues in the text. Like again, your schema in your head, you're going to use what you know too. And you're going to say, I think the author was trying to entertain me or inform me or persuade me. So these are the type of questions that make you think about what you read, but it's not in the text. Just has to do with the text. Again, all of these are very important, even though they're very different types of questions. And then we have on your own. This is where maybe you might be asked, what is your opinion of what happened in the text? Again, the answer is not there. It's in your head. They might even ask you, have you ever? Things like that are really good. Well, questions, I don't want to say things. Questions like that are very good because they make you connect with the text. They make you think about what you've read and put yourself in the story, or make you think about what the main idea is and see how it connects to you, or what the characters are doing and how it connects to you. You're not going to find it in the text. It has to do with you and what you think as it applies to what you read. Okay, so I wanted to go over the pictures really quickly because I like to have pictures to go along with words that make me think about what I'm learning and what I'm reading. So I don't want to get away from not showing that to you. So just remember, on your own, it's going to make you thinking about the world and the things around you, things that you've experienced, has to do with you and some things that you've read in the past. And also, do not forget, it has to do with the book that you read. You're just not going to find the answer there. Okay, so we went over 4 different QAR strategies. We went over write their questions. Okay. Remember, those are going to be in the book. You're going to find those answers in the book. We went over think and search. You're also going to find those answers in the book. Don't forget, you have your author and me questions. They have to do with the book, but the answer isn't in the book. Don't worry. I know it might sound confusing, but we're going to practice it in just a moment. We're going to put our work into action. These are going to be in your head. They have to do with the book, but the answer will be in your head. You won't be able to look for it and find it. It's going to be in your head. And then last, on your own. On your own is also in your head. You're not going to find it in the book, but it has to do with the book. And it's going to be asking you questions about what you think about what you read. Okay, so when we get to the next part of this video, I'm going to read a story to you, which I know you like. I like to be read to. So I'm going to read, it's very short, read a short passage to you. And when I am done reading it, we're going to go over some different questions. And what we're going to do is identify what questions or what types of questions are being asked and how to find the answers to those questions in the text. It's going to be quick and very easy to follow because, again, by the end of this video, you will be able to identify different types of questions and you'll be able to answer those too when you're reading on your own with your teacher, with a friend, classmates, all of the above. So we will get started in just a moment. Let's practice using our strategies that we've learned. Our QAR strategies are going to help us figure out when we are to use the text to answer our questions or when we are just simply going to use some of our schema that means what we know in our minds from previous readings, things that we have seen, things that we have heard, things that we have learned along the way. So I'm going to start off with a right there question. Butterflies, well, according to the text, what size are they? Now remember, it's a right there question. Therefore, you're going to be able to go straight to the text and find this answer. Let me help you out. Very good. You knew the answer all along. Butterflies are small. We were able to go straight to the text and we were able to find the information right there in the text. Now I'm going to ask you another question. I'm going to give you a clue. You are going to find this answer in the text as well. But I'm going to make you work a little bit for it. I'm going to ask you, where do butterflies go in the winter? I'm going to find it in the text. I'm going to look in the text. I've got it. Well, see, it tells me that butterflies fly north in the summertime. Doesn't say anything about winter. But if you remember earlier, I said that when we are using the strategy of think and search, sometimes we might focus on comparing and contrasting. Well, what's the opposite of summer? Winter. Summer is hot and winter is cold. So if butterflies go to the north during the summer, and it says, if I keep reading, when the weather gets cold, wintertime, then they fly south. So the answer is right there in the text. However, it's not a right there QAR strategy. It is actually a think and search because I use the word winter. Winter is not in this particular passage, but I am able to figure out with the information there that if they fly north during the summer, then during the winter, they fly south. Also, in the text, it tells me when the weather is cold, they go south. So as you see, it's really important for us to think about where we get information from because The information is there in the text. We just have to look for it. Now, I'm going to ask you 2 more questions. And these questions are going to be, you guessed it right. We're going to get them from our thinking in our head, things that we know. Now remember, we don't answer these questions because we don't need to talk about the reading. No, the strategies on your own and our strategies for authoring me, they help us answer the questions that have to do with what we're reading, but we're just not going to find the answer in the text. So what I mean by that is, question, what do you think the author's purpose is for this text? Give you some think time. I've got it. See, this is a nonfiction piece, which means the information in the text is true. So I know that the author probably wants to inform me in a fun way. Cool illustrations, and who doesn't love butterflies? But the author wants to inform me. So I know the author's purpose is most likely to inform. See, that would be an authoring me question. As you can see, that answer is not in the text, but it has to do with the text. Again, we're growing our reading and we're growing our learning, which is really great. Stay with me for one more. Okay, now this last question, you want to think of a good one. So you know what? I want to know what you think, because you're the reader and you're important too. So, what is your opinion of butterflies? I told you mine. You think they're beautiful too? I do too. Well, see, that has to do with the text, but we're not going to find that in the text because that came from our head. That's right. So as you see, all of these strategies, we use them every time we read. We just don't realize it. So keep in mind that every answer to the questions that have to do with our reading don't necessarily come straight out of the text. Sometimes they come out of our heads and from what we know and what we've experienced, making those connections. And then there are times we get them from the reading. Sometimes they're a little harder to find and require us to do some thinking and some deep searching. And then there's other times we can find them right there. Whatever it is, keep practicing and make sure that you think about what you're reading. Talk to someone about what you're reading and practice using these strategies on your own. I know you can do it. It was really great seeing you and talking to you. And I really enjoyed our time together. I will see you next week. Keep practicing because practice makes permanent.
Southeast because of the culture, the band program, and restorative justice.
I love Southeast because of the academics, sports, and students.
I love Southeast because of the people, the energy, and the advanced classes.
It's not alike. I love Southeast because the students here at Southeast are full of potential and they believe in achieving anything.
We are Southeast.
Southeast.
We stand shoulder to shoulder.
Join the Southeast family. Enroll today.
I am Lincoln Middle.
At Lincoln Middle School, students discover their talents and passions, where teachers plant the seeds of lifelong learning.
I am Lincoln Middle.
Where excellence is nurtured. Students develop the skills to be successful in school, career, and beyond.
Je suis Lincoln Middle.
Lincoln Middle is the public school where your child will thrive and grow. Open a world of possibilities. Apply today. Learn more at enrollkc.org/Lincoln Middle.
Hi everyone, this is Miss Lu again, and this is Chinese for Level 2 students. So in the last few weeks, we learned about the hobbies and the sports. We learned about the vocabulary. So today we're going to first do a review of the vocabulary. Then we're going to move on to learn some sentence structures. So 爱好、运动, hobbies and sports. To begin with, the review of the vocabulary and also a sentence we learned. 你有什么爱好? If someone asks you, 你有什么爱好? 我喜欢弹吉他。我喜欢看电视。我喜欢听音乐。我喜欢读书。我喜欢唱歌。Or if you have other hobbies, 我喜欢弹钢琴。我喜欢拉小提琴。我喜欢看小说。我喜欢画画 or 我喜欢看电影 Okay, so those are the vocabulary we learned for the hobbies, 爱好 And then we also learned about 运动 sports. So, 你喜欢什么运动? 你喜欢什么运动? If you like, so 我喜欢跑步。我喜欢游泳。我喜欢踢足球。我喜欢打排球。我喜欢滑雪。Or we learned more. 我喜欢打网球。我喜欢打篮球。我喜欢打橄榄球。我喜欢打棒球。Or 我喜欢摔跤。Okay, so above are the vocabulary we have learned for the unit of hobbies and sports. And today, we're going to learn some sentence structures. So our objective is I can create sentences about hobbies and sports using the structures we learned today. So like usual, you're going to need your notebook and a pencil to take notes. So get ready to learn. Okay, here, as you see, 句子. So these are the 句子. These are the 句子 we are going to learn today. So the first one, 一边, 一边. Second one, 正在. And third one, 跟 somebody 一起 do something. So we're going to take a look of these three sentence structure one by one. First one, 第一个, 一边 do something, 一边 do something. So doing two things at the same time. So if you translate into English, that will be I'm doing this thing while doing the other thing. Let's look at an example. 他一边听音乐，一边读书. So look at him. So he's listening to music while reading. 他一边听音乐，一边读书，一边 doing two things at the same time. This one. 他一边弹吉他，他一边弹吉他，一边唱歌，一边唱歌。So look at him. He's playing guitar and singing at the same time. 他一边弹吉他，一边唱歌。Now it's your turn to do a practice. 一边，一边。Give you 10 seconds to think a sentence and then we'll write it together and you will also write it together with me as your notes for today. So think about it. How would you create a sentence? Use 一边，一边 for this picture. Say it by yourself and then we'll write down to check if you have it correctly. 一边，一边. So he's running and listening to the music at the same time. How would you say that? 他一边 running and then 一边 listening to music. Ready to check together? 他一边跑步 running 跑步，一边 listening to music 听音乐。Okay, let's write it down together on your notebook. Let's write it down together. 他一边跑步，他一边跑步。他一边跑步 running 一边跑步，一边 listening to music 听音乐。他一边跑步一边听音乐。I would like you to take notes. 一边 so doing two things at the same time. 一边 doing two things at the same time. 他一边跑步一边听音乐。好了吗？ Let's move on to the second sentence structure. 他一边跑步一边听音乐。The second word for the sentence using is 正在。So when you're talking about someone is doing something,他正在 For example, she's reading a novel. 她正在看小说。她正在看小说。So 正在 is doing something. 他正在游泳。他正在游泳。So he is swimming. 他正在游泳。So 正在 I would like you to use 正在 to create a sentence. How would you say this one? So 10 seconds to think about a sentence using 正在 based on the picture. 正在10、9、8、7、6、5、4、3、2、1、0. Okay, we just counted from 10 to 1. Remember the numbers we learned and the hand gestures. So, a sentence for this: 他正在 play tennis. 打网球 Okay, let's write it down together on your notebook. 他正在打网球 play tennis 打网球。So 他正在打网球 This is a sample sentence for you. Don't forget to take notes of the sentence structure. Okay? 正在 is doing something. 正在 is doing something. 他正在打网球。他正在打网球。正在 is doing something. Ready? Now let's move on to the third sentence structure for today. So this one, 他正在打网球. And then the third structure for today, 跟 somebody 一起 do something. Okay, so 跟 means with. 一起 means together. So you are doing something together with somebody. 跟 somebody 一起 do something. An example would be, look at the picture. So they are playing basketball together. So play basketball with your friends. I 跟 with 朋友 my friends 一起 together do what? 打篮球 play basketball. So together 我跟朋友一起打篮球。我跟朋友一起打篮球。 So I play basketball together with my friends. 跟 somebody 一起 do something. Another example. So if you are watching TV with your family members, that will be 我跟 the somebody here will be family members. That's 家人一起 together do something. The do something here is watch TV. So that's 看电视. The sentence will be 我跟家人一起看电视. Okay? 2 examples. Now your turn. So they are playing the violin with the teacher. They are playing the violin with the teacher. So how would you create a sentence using this structure? They are playing the violin with the teacher. So you can say 我跟 who is the somebody here 一起 do what? 10 seconds to think about it. 10 9 8 7 6 5 4 3 2 1 0. Okay, let's write it down together. So a sentence for this one would be 我跟老师一起拉小提琴。我 You can say I play the violin together with my teacher. So 我 Or if you want to see he playing the violin with the teacher or she played the violin with the teacher, that's all correct. Okay, as long as you are using the sentence structure correctly. So you can see either say 我 or 他跟 somebody here is 老师一起 do what? Play the violin. I'll write it down here. 拉 play the violin. 拉小提琴 Okay. 我跟老师一起拉小提琴 Don't forget write down the sentence structure. 跟 somebody 一起 do something. So together with somebody do something. 跟一起 The example for this one. 我跟老师一起拉小提琴 Okay. 跟 somebody 一起 do something. Okay, so that's this sentence. 我跟老师一起拉小提琴 And this concludes the 3 sentences we learned for today. 一边 doing 2 things at the same time. 正在 is doing something. 跟 somebody 一起 do something. So together with somebody, you do the things together. Okay, so to end the session for today, I would like to give you a homework, which is ask you to do a practice, create a sentence for each sentence structures. For each sentence structure we learned today. 一边正在跟一起 Okay, so that will be your homework. Create a sentence for each one. So that's conclude our lesson for today. It's my pleasure to have you in my class, and we'll see you next time.
Lincoln Middle.
At Lincoln Middle School, students discover their talents and passions, where teachers plant the seeds of lifelong learning.
I am Lincoln Middle.
Where excellence is nurtured. Students develop the skills to be successful in school, career, and beyond.
Je suis Lincoln Middle.
Lincoln Middle is the public school where your child will thrive and grow. Open a world of possibilities. Apply today. Learn more at enrollkc.org/Lincoln Middle.
The desire to create lives within each of us. From Grammy-winning producers and musicians, to NBA stars, to Navy admirals and Medal of Honor recipients, to internationally renowned artists, and beloved local muralists, Paseo graduates have been creating their own success, their own history, their own legacy since 1926. Now it's your time. Create your future at Paseo Academy of Fine and Performing Arts. Learn more at enrollkc.org/Paseo.
Welcome to KCPS Homeroom. I'm Paul Turner, Social Studies Coordinator for Secondary Level. Today, we're going to talk to you about the Gilded Age. We're going to finish up some of the questions that we have for the Industrial Age. We're going to come questions about labor and how that come about. So today, you'll need pencil and paper and be ready to learn. Today's objective, we're going to explain the socio-economic changes, continuities associated with the growth of industrial capitalism from 1865 to 1898. Remember the Gilded Age, what did Mark Twain say? It was basically a shining era underlined by corruption and basically greed. So when we talk about the Gilded Age, we have to talk about the workers, right? The workers in this was a diverse working people, right? We had women working, we had kids working, we had men working. So the workers were diverse, right? So all of them had different needs and different goals. We had kids working 16-hour days alongside their parents, right? So basically what was happening to the educational system, what's happened to these kids basically just mentally. All right. So while we talk about the workers, we have to talk about the battle of wages. You remember industrialists, they wanted to capitalize on their profit. They put all this money towards building these huge factories, right? And they wanted to capitalize on every piece of money that they got coming in. So they were paying these workers low wages. And even if they complain, guess what? We're going through a huge immigration phase. So they could pay these immigrants a whole lot less than what they could pay some of these workers. So some of these workers just didn't complain at all. And they're dealing with unsafe working conditions. Literally, sometimes you can have somebody's hand get cut off and they still have to work. So what do we do there? There's no real safety net going on in American society. So labor's greatest strength was a strike. So if I'm working in these factories, basically these long hours, these horrible conditions, only thing I really can do is strike. Most strikes were ineffective. That's going to be a common theme throughout this basic lesson. These strikes are ineffective, right? The American public basically turned against these striking workers. And these industrial capitalists, what they would do, they hire these called strike breakers, right? They would break up these riots. Basically, sometimes when the strike breakers would come in, they would line up against basically these workers. While these workers are sitting there, more money for more job, right? More money for more pay, all that good stuff. These strike breakers would come in with guns and weapons and basically becomes a powder keg. Boom, it just blew up. So I want you to think about sometimes like this summer, what happened basically in some of these major cities. Sometimes a powder keg just happens and things just blow up. So that was happening in American society during this time frame. Alright, the power of the federal government will come in too during these strikes, right? So, let's talk about some of these strikes. Basically, let's talk about 1866. Rutherford B Hayes was the president during this time frame. He basically brought the power of the federal government to basically end the strikes. They were bringing troops basically to quell strikes. They used court orders to quell strikes. So if these workers were striking, the court would rule against them, basically forcing these workers to go back to work for low wages. And the National Guard, again, they were part of the powder keg. So a lot of the times you saw the use of the federal government using all its powers against these workers. They were trying to fight for safe working conditions, shorter working hours, but again, the federal government and these industrialists were against them. So, use of big business, what they would do. Basically, somebody starts complaining about work-ins, unionizing and all this good other stuff. They would use this lockout system. So what lockouts did, basically is process locking workers out of work. So literally, they would lock the doors to not allow these workers to come in. This basically was a huge shift. You start taking some people's money away. Put like this, people get more in line. And they used to scab work. And basically what a scab is basically bringing in replacement workers to take your job. So literally, you can be out there striking, and the scab will come in, basically start doing your job, and basically he becomes the full-time worker in your place. And sometimes they become the permanent worker in your place too. So, Another tactic that big business will use is called this yellow dog contract. And what this yellow dog contract was, basically, it forces workers not to unionize. Basically, you will sign this contract. And this contract will force you basically become part of this union, part of this company. They said if you sign on to become part of this company, basically, if you unionize, I can fire you. And a lot of times these workers become blacklisted basically in the city. So a lot of times these workers will come in, basically, they realize they work in these horrible conditions. So they decided they want to become this part of this collective, this union, basically to fight for these workers' rights, basically fight for more pay. So a lot of times these companies say you sign this yellow dog contract, you can't unionize. So if you unionize, I'm going to tell all these other businesses around you not to even hire you if I fire you, right? So a lot of times these basically workers will basically bond and basically to these factories. They couldn't go find other jobs other places. They'd be literally become blacklisted in this city. So they couldn't find jobs anywhere. Their families were struggling. And if I fire you, more likely if your brother's working there too, guess what I'm going to do to him? I'm going to fire him. So now you have pressure on you, right? You can't unionize. If you unionize, I'm going to fire your whole family. I'm going to put that pressure on you to make sure that you don't try to basically take money out of my pocket if I'm an industrialist. Okay, knowledge check. What did big business do in the late 1800s to force workers from unionizing? Remember, we just talked about it, right? We talked about blacklisting workers. We talked about yellow dog contracts. We talked about using the federal government against them. All right? How do workers fight for their rights during the workplace? They try to strike. They try to fight for basically their needs for more worker, for more basically pay, for more basically safety in the workplace. These are all tenets of basically social reform that we're going to start bringing up here in the next few weeks. So, the middle class response basically to workers. The middle class basically, they didn't support striking workers. You have to understand that in American society we're competing for basically limited resources. So the middle class saw these striking workers basically trying to take some of their goods from them, take some of their competition, some of their resources away. So they felt like these striking workers were radicals. They felt like these striking workers were basically trying to take resources away from this middle class. And you remember, if I'm part of that middle class, I'm trying to get to part of that upper class too. So politically, I'm identifying with the upper class because I'm envious of them, right? They felt like these workers were radicals. You hear this all the time, especially in the age of politics today. The term radical, basically want to overthrow the government. You hear about the term anarchists. That's what they were thinking about these striking workers. They're basically using the term socialist before it was being used. Alright, so it all comes to a head, right? 1877. These railroad, barons of industry, they felt like they were bolden, right? They knew that they had the power of the federal government behind them. They knew it. So they basically cut the workers' pay by 10% in 1877. This was huge. Take 10% of my money away from me. That's a lot of money taken away out of my pocket, right? So they cut the wages by 10%. This led to a strike. The Great Renault Strike of 1877. This forced the government basically come in with a strong hand and basically quell this strike. Rutherford B Hayes, he sent federal troops to stop this strike. It was a massive, massive strike. He sent over 100 troops in, right? Basically with their guns, with their artillery. So guess what happens? That powder keg went off. Bam! When that powder keg went off, basically things happened. You saw people basically die in the streets. These workers basically were forced to go back to work. And basically, you started seeing these workers saying, you know what? Who do we have on our side? Who do we have fighting for us? So you start seeing this term called unionizing, right? So industrialists, government opposed them, basically workers striking, right? Most strikes were ineffective. Competing interests based on race and class basically were forcing these workers apart. So you start seeing this term called unionizing coming about, right? The first unions basically, they're basically for white males during this time frame. They didn't want basically minorities a part of them. They didn't want immigrants a part of them. They're basically for Protestant white males who have already been here, right? So, when these unions started coming about, they basically excluded the Irish, they excluded the Asians, they excluded blacks, they excluded women. Most of these unions basically were protecting, again, Protestant white males who's been here for a long time. So let's start answering some questions. How did the federal government respond to labor strikes? You remember, they used court orders, they used basically the troops, and they used other tactics basically to force workers to go back to work. What were some of the competing interests of labor and class basically against big businesses? So, again, I would bring in immigrant workers to take your spot. I'd bring in scab workers to take your spot, right? So that's how big business quelled these strikes. I want you to explain some continuities of labor during this time frame. Some of the continuities of labor. Remember, labor tended basically, if I worked the same job as my brother, I'm bringing him in basically my family, right? So that was still one of those interests. Labor tended to be a family thing. Even when the Irish and even when the Italians started coming over, it was a family thing. If my family got a job somewhere, more likely I'm going to get my brother hired, I'm going to get my cousin hired, I'm going to get my wife hired. We're all going to work at the same factory during this time frame. Alright, now the you do, guys. I want you guys to write one paragraph on how labor should respond going forward with big business. You should be able to explain your thoughts if labor should continue about what was happening in the past. Basically, should they continue what was happening, or should they find a new way going forward? You should explain your thoughts on paper, and basically it takes about one paragraph to do that. I want you to think about what's happening during this time frame. Remember, this is a changing world. Mark Twain basically defined this era as the Gilded Age. Remember, it's an era of wealth defined by corruption and basically an underbelly of wealth being exceeded while we're leaving people behind, correct? So this Gilded Age was huge going forward. Labor had a huge response going forward too. We're going to talk about that next week. I'm Paul Turner, Social Studies Coordinator, Kansas City Public Schools. See you guys from home.